I thought I had finally found my place in the Martinez family. My mother-in-law, Patricia, had invited me to what she called our first real family dinner at Le Bernardin, one of those restaurants where they don't put prices on the menu and the waiters speak in hushed, reverent tones. As I smoothed down my best dress in the mirror of our tiny Manhattan apartment, I felt a flutter of hope. Maybe this was it. Maybe I was finally going to be accepted. "You look beautiful," my husband David said, straightening his tie. "Mom's really making an effort, you know. This dinner means a lot to her." I wanted to believe him. For 8 months since our wedding, Patricia had been politely distant, never quite rude enough to call out, but never warm either. Her smiles felt measured, her compliments backhanded. "Rebecca's so practical," she'd say, making practical sound like a disease. But tonight felt different. When she'd called to invite us, her voice had been genuinely enthusiastic. "I want to get to know the real Rebecca," she'd said. "It's time you became one of us." One of us. The phrase had echoed in my mind for days. The Martinez family moved in circles I'd only read about in magazines: charity galas, country club memberships, vacation homes in the Hamptons. David's sister Jennifer worked in fashion PR and spoke casually about flying to Paris for the weekend. Sometimes I felt like I was playing dress-up in their world. As we walked into Le Bernardin, I caught Patricia's reflection in the restaurant's gleaming surfaces: perfectly coiffed silver hair, pearls that probably cost more than my car, that particular brand of confidence that comes from never having to check your bank balance. She air-kissed my cheeks, her Chanel No. 5 enveloping me like a gentle warning. "Rebecca, darling, you look lovely," she said, her eyes scanning my outfit with the precision of a jeweler examining a questionable diamond. "That dress is so... you." Jennifer arrived moments later, a whirlwind of designer everything and carefully casual glamour. She hugged me warmly, but I caught the quick glance she exchanged with her mother, a look I couldn't quite decipher. "This place is incredible," I said, genuinely awed by the restaurant's understated elegance. The lighting was perfect, the service seamless, everything designed to make you feel both pampered and slightly intimidated. "Oh, this is nothing," Patricia waved dismissively. "We come here whenever we want somewhere reliable." Reliable. Another loaded word in Patricia's vocabulary, where everything carried double meanings. The conversation flowed easily at first. Patricia asked about my work as a financial advisor, though her questions felt more like an interview than genuine interest. Jennifer shared stories from Fashion Week, painting a picture of a world where $1,000 shoes were everyday accessories. I found myself calculating the cost of everything around us: the wine Patricia ordered without looking at the price, the appetizers that probably cost what I spent on groceries in a week. "You know," Patricia said, cutting delicately into her Dover soul, "family is everything to the Martinez clan. We take care of our own, and we expect the same in return." There was something in her tone that made me look up from my salad. Jennifer had gone very still, her fork suspended halfway to her mouth. "Of course," I replied carefully. "Family comes first." "Exactly." Patricia's smile was radiant and somehow predatory. "We believe in contributions, everyone doing their part." I was starting to understand that this dinner wasn't about getting to know me at all. The way Patricia kept glancing at the wine list, ordering the most expensive options. The way Jennifer kept checking her phone, as if she was waiting for something. The subtle questions about my salary, my savings, my financial philosophy. They weren't trying to welcome me into the family. They were sizing me up. "Tell me, Rebecca," Patricia continued, her voice honey-sweet. "What do you think about financial responsibility in marriage? Some people believe the wife should contribute equally to family expenses." My stomach dropped. David had mentioned that his family had some old-fashioned ideas about money and marriage, but I thought he meant they were traditional about women working. This felt different. This felt like a trap. "I believe in fairness," I said slowly. "Partners should contribute what they can." Patricia nodded thoughtfully. And what can you contribute? Exactly. The question hung in the air like smoke. Around us, other diners continued their conversations, oblivious to the fact that I was being dissected at table 12. The waiter appeared to refill our wine glasses, and Patricia ordered another bottle of the Chablis Premier Cru. "Mom," Jennifer said softly, but Patricia held up a manicured hand. "I'm just getting to know our Rebecca better," she said. "After all, she's family now." But the way she said family made it clear that I wasn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. As the main courses arrived, I realized I was being played. This wasn't a welcome dinner. It was an initiation. Patricia had chosen this restaurant, ordered these wines, created this entire expensive evening for a reason. And as I watched her signal the waiter for yet another round of drinks, I began to understand exactly what that reason was. "You know what I love about this family?" Patricia said, raising her glass in what felt like a toast and a threat. "We don't believe in pretending. We show who we really are." Her eyes met mine across the table, and I saw the challenge there, the gauntlet being thrown down. Whatever was coming next, I knew it was going to change everything. Jennifer's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and went completely pale. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Patricia asked, but her tone suggested she already knew. "Nothing, Mom. Just work stuff." But I could see the text from where I sat. Is she going to do it? That's when I knew for certain. This whole evening had been orchestrated. Patricia hadn't invited me here to bond or get to know me better. She'd brought me here to make a point. And whatever that point was, Jennifer was in on it. The waiter appeared with dessert menus, but Patricia waved him away. "Just the check, please," she said with the casual authority of someone who'd never worried about money a day in her life. My heart started pounding. I thought about the prices I'd glimpsed on other tables' receipts when we walked in. 4 people, premium wine, multiple courses at one of Manhattan's most expensive restaurants. We were easily looking at $400, maybe $5. Patricia leaned back in her chair, studying me with the intensity of a chess player about to make a winning move. "You know, Rebecca, there's something I've been wanting to discuss with you." Here it comes, I thought. Whatever this dinner was really about. David's told us so much about your ambitions, your career, how independent you are. Each word was carefully chosen, deliberately weighted. It's admirable, really, a modern woman who doesn't need to rely on her husband's family for support. The waiter returned with the leather check presenter, setting it discreetly beside Patricia's elbow. She didn't even glance at it. "In fact," she continued, her smile growing wider and sharper, "I think it's time you showed us just how independent you really are." Jennifer was staring at her wine glass like it held the secrets of the universe. David, bless him, was completely oblivious to the undercurrent swirling around our table. Patricia picked up the check presenter with theatrical slowness, opened it, and glanced inside. Her eyebrows raised in mock surprise. "Oh my, looks like we really indulged ourselves tonight." She closed it and slid it across the white tablecloth toward me. The movement was so smooth, so practiced, that I knew she'd done this before. This was her move, her power play. "You'll be taking care of the bill tonight, right?" The words hit me like a physical blow. Around us, the restaurant continued its elegant hum of conversation and clinking silverware. But at our table, time seemed suspended. Patricia's smile was expectant, victorious. Jennifer had gone completely rigid, her face a mask of uncomfortable compliance. "I'm sorry," I managed to say, though we both knew I'd heard her perfectly. "The bill," Patricia repeated, her voice carrying just enough volume for the neighboring tables to catch the edge of drama. "You'll be handling it, won't you? To show you're one of us." One of us. There it was again. That phrase that had seemed so welcoming just days ago. Now it felt like a cage. I opened the leather folder with trembling fingers. $487.36. The number swam before my eyes as I did the quick math in my head. That was my grocery budget for 2 months. That was the payment on my student loans. That was the money I'd been saving to help David and me put a down payment on a real apartment instead of our cramped studio. It's a family tradition, Patricia explained, her voice dripping with false warmth. When someone new joins our circle, they prove their commitment, their ability to contribute. I could feel other diners starting to pay attention to our table. The couple next to us had stopped talking and were pretending to study their phones while clearly listening. The waiter hovered nearby, sensing tension but unsure whether to approach. "This is how we separate the wheat from the chaff," Patricia continued. "The people who belong from the people who are just visiting." Jennifer finally looked up from her wine glass. "Mom, maybe we should..." "Should what, darling? Should pretend that marriage doesn't come with responsibilities? Should act like Rebecca hasn't been enjoying the benefits of this family without contributing anything in return?" The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Benefits of the family? What benefits? The cold shoulder at family gatherings? The subtle comments about my background, my clothes, my job? The feeling that I was constantly being measured and found wanting? But I knew what Patricia was really saying. She was talking about David, about the fact that I'd captured her precious son without bringing the right pedigree, the right connections, the right bank account to the marriage. "I understand this might be challenging for you," Patricia said, managing to sound both sympathetic and condescending. "Not everyone grows up with our advantages, but if you want to be part of this family, really part of it, this is what's required." I stared at the check again. $487.36, a week's salary after taxes, money I'd earned by working 60-hour weeks, by building my client base from nothing, by scrimp and saving and saying no to everything fun so David and I could build a future together. Money that Patricia wanted me to spend on a single meal to prove my worthiness. "Take your time," she said graciously, as if she was doing me a favor. "I know it's a big decision." But it wasn't a decision at all, and we both knew it. It was a test designed to put me in my place. If I paid, I'd be establishing a precedent that would follow me for the rest of my marriage. I'd be the daughter-in-law who could be manipulated with guilt and shame into opening her wallet whenever Patricia felt like flexing her power. If I didn't pay, I'd be the selfish gold digger who couldn't even cover a family dinner, the woman who married David for his money and then couldn't even reciprocate when asked. It was brilliant, really. Patricia had created a lose-lose situation wrapped in the pretty paper of family tradition. Jennifer was texting furiously under the table, probably updating whoever had asked, "Is she going to do it?" David was starting to catch on that something was wrong, his eyes moving between his mother's expectant face and my obvious distress. "Babe," he said quietly, "everything okay?" How could I explain this to him? How could I tell him that his mother had just set me up for public humiliation, that this entire evening had been designed to put me in my place? I looked at Patricia's perfectly composed face, at Jennifer's uncomfortable squirming, at David's growing confusion. I thought about all the times I'd bitten my tongue at family gatherings, all the subtle insults I'd absorbed, all the ways I'd tried to fit into their world. And suddenly, I felt something shift inside me, a clarity that cut through the panic and embarrassment like a knife through silk. I'd been thinking about this all wrong. Patricia thought she was testing my financial resources, my willingness to be manipulated, my desperation to belong. But she'd made one crucial miscalculation. She'd assumed I was the same person who'd married into this family 8 months ago, uncertain, eager to please, willing to compromise myself for acceptance. But I wasn't that person anymore. And as I sat there looking at that check, feeling the weight of every gaze in the restaurant, I realized I had something Patricia didn't expect. I had options, and I was about to use them. I reached for my purse with deliberate calm, watching Patricia's face light up with triumph. She thought she'd won. She thought she'd successfully cornered me into either paying for everyone or revealing myself as the cheap, unworthy daughter-in-law she'd always suspected I was. What Patricia didn't know was that I'd spent the last 8 months studying this family with the same analytical precision I used to evaluate investment portfolios for my clients. Every snide comment, every backhanded compliment, every subtle power play had been cataloged and assessed. And tonight, all that observation was about to pay dividends. "Absolutely," I said, my voice clear and confident. "I'll take care of everything." Patricia's smile became radiant. Jennifer looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. David seemed relieved that the weird tension at the table was finally resolving. "Wonderful," Patricia purred. "I knew you'd understand what family means." I opened my wallet and pulled out my credit card, not the joint account David and I shared for household expenses, but my personal American Express, the one I used for business dinners and client entertainment, the one with a limit that would probably make Patricia's pearls rattle if she knew the number. "You know, Patricia," I said conversationally, placing the card on the table, "there's something I should probably tell you about myself. Something David might not have mentioned." The waiter approached, eyeing the card, but I held up a finger. "Just one moment," I told him with a smile. Patricia's expression flickered with the first hint of uncertainty. "Oh? What's that, dear?" "Well, you keep talking about family contributions and financial responsibility, and you're absolutely right. I do believe in paying my own way." I picked up the check and studied it with the professional attention I'd give a client's financial statement. Let's see. The Caesar salad I ordered was $23.50, perfectly reasonable for a place like this. Jennifer's eyes widened. David looked confused. Patricia's smile faltered. "I'm sorry. What are you saying?" Patricia asked, her voice losing some of its honeyed warmth. "I'm saying I'll pay for exactly what I ordered. $23.50. Plus tip, of course. I always tip well." I looked directly at Patricia, my smile as bright and sharp as hers had been moments before. "The rest of the bill. The wine you ordered without asking anyone. The appetizers you insisted on. The expensive entrees you selected. That's not my responsibility." The silence at our table was deafening. Patricia's face went through a fascinating series of color changes, from confident pink to confused white to an alarming shade of red. That's not how this works," she sputtered. "Actually, it's exactly how it works," I replied calmly. "See, Patricia, here's what you don't understand about people who actually earn their money instead of inheriting it. We know the value of every dollar. We don't spend frivolously, and we certainly don't let other people manipulate us into paying for their indulgences." I reached into my purse again and pulled out exactly $28, $23.50 for my salad and $4.50 for the tip. I placed the bills on the table with ceremonial precision. "This covers my portion, including gratuity. The rest is yours to handle." Patricia made a choking sound and reached for her water glass. Some of the wine she'd been sipping went down wrong, and she began coughing violently. Jennifer sat frozen, her fork suspended halfway to her mouth, staring at me like I'd just performed a magic trick. "Rebecca," David said slowly, "what's going on?" I turned to my husband with genuine affection. Sweet David, who'd grown up in this bubble of privilege and had never learned to recognize manipulation because he'd never needed to defend himself against it. "Your mother invited me to dinner to test whether I'd let myself be financially exploited," I explained gently. "She assumed I'd either pay the entire bill to prove I belong or refuse and prove I'm a gold digger. It was a clever setup, really." Patricia had recovered from her coughing fit and was staring at me with undisguised fury. "You have some nerve—" "Actually, I have a backbone," I interrupted, "which is something you apparently didn't count on." I stood up, gathering my purse and coat. Several nearby tables had given up all pretense of not listening and were openly watching our drama unfold. "You see, Patricia, you made a fundamental error in your calculation. You assumed I needed your approval, your acceptance, your validation. But here's the thing about being an independent woman with her own career and her own money. I don't need anything from you except basic human decency. I leaned down slightly, lowering my voice so only our table could hear. And since you've made it clear that's more than you're capable of providing, I think we're done here. The maitre d' was approaching, clearly sensing trouble. I intercepted him with a professional smile. Excuse me, could you please split our check? The lady in pearls and her daughter will be handling the majority of the bill. I've left cash for my portion on the table. Certainly, madam, he replied, probably grateful for a clear resolution to whatever family drama was playing out. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The total she'd be responsible for was $463.86. I knew the exact number because I'd been calculating it in my head throughout the meal, the way I always did when dining with clients or in any situation where money might become an issue. You can't just leave us with the bill, Patricia hissed. Actually, I can, I replied cheerfully. You ordered it, you enjoyed it, you can pay for it. That's how restaurants work. Jennifer finally found her voice. Rebecca, this is fair? I suggested. Reasonable. A basic application of personal responsibility? I kissed David's cheek. I'll meet you at home, sweetheart. I think your mother and sister need some time to process this. As I walked toward the exit, I could hear Patricia's voice rising behind me. David, are you going to let her embarrass your family like this? I didn't turn around to see his response. I didn't need to. David was a good man, but he'd been raised in a world where conflict was smoothed over with money, and uncomfortable truths were buried under layers of politeness. It would take him some time to understand what had really happened tonight, but he'd figure it out, and when he did, he'd realize that his wife had just refused to be bullied by his mother, not out of spite or cheapness, but out of self-respect. The cool Manhattan air hit my face as I stepped outside, and I felt lighter than I had in months. My phone was already buzzing with texts, probably from Jennifer or David, but I ignored them. I had proven something important tonight, not just to Patricia, but to myself. I wasn't the desperate, eager-to-please woman who'd married into this family. I was Rebecca Martinez, financial advisor, business owner, woman who'd built her own life and her own success. And no amount of manipulation or social pressure was going to change that. The next morning brought a bombardment of phone calls and texts. Patricia's messages ranged from wounded confusion to outright fury. I was trying to welcome you into the family, she wrote. This is how you repay our generosity? Jennifer's texts were more diplomatic but equally mystified. Mom is really upset. She just wanted to include you. Couldn't you have just paid and talked about it later? But it was David's reaction that mattered most. When he came home from the restaurant, after apparently staying to help his mother and sister figure out how to pay a bill they'd created, he found me reading in bed, completely calm. That was intense, he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. Your mother tried to publicly humiliate me into paying for her expensive dinner, I replied without looking up from my book. How did you expect me to react? I didn't realize. I knew she could be difficult, but I thought this was just her way of what, David? Of showing me my place? Of proving that I'm not good enough for this family unless I open my wallet on command? He was quiet for a long time. Finally, she's been talking about money a lot lately. About how expensive things are, how the family needs to stick together financially. I set down my book and looked at him directly. Is your family having money problems? Not exactly problems, but things are tighter than they used to be. Mom's been hinting that Jennifer and I should contribute more to family expenses, help with the country club dues, stuff like that. Suddenly, the entire evening made perfect sense. Patricia wasn't just testing me, she was recruiting me. She'd figured out that I had money and wanted to tap into it. The expensive dinner wasn't a power play, it was a job interview for the position of family cash cow. "David," I said gently, "your mother doesn't want me to be part of the family. She wants me to bankroll the family." The realization hit him like a physical blow. I could see it in his face, the pieces clicking together, the pattern becoming clear. "Oh God," he whispered. "That's why she's been asking so many questions about your salary, your savings account." Exactly. And when I wouldn't play along, she tried to shame me into compliance. Over the next few days, the family pressure intensified. Patricia called David repeatedly, alternating between wounded martyrdom and righteous indignation. How dare I embarrass her at her favorite restaurant? How could I be so selfish when family was supposed to support each other? Jennifer took a different approach, suggesting we all meet for coffee to clear the air. But when I agreed and suggested we meet at a modest cafe near my office instead of another expensive venue, she suddenly became unavailable. The turning point came when Patricia showed up at our apartment unannounced, apparently believing she could corner me into apologizing. "We need to talk," she announced, pushing past David when he answered the door. "No, we don't," I replied calmly, not getting up from the couch where I was working on client files. "You humiliated me in public. You abandoned your family responsibilities. I paid for what I ordered and left," I interrupted, "just like any reasonable adult would do. That's not how family works." "You're right," I said, finally looking up at her. "Family doesn't work by ambushing people with surprise bills and then guilting them into compliance. Family doesn't work by treating someone like an ATM instead of a person." Patricia's face flushed red. "I have been nothing but welcoming to you. You've been evaluating me like a business acquisition. Every conversation we've had has been about my job, my income, my financial capacity. You don't know my favorite color, my hobbies, where I grew up, what I studied in college, or what makes me happy, but you know exactly how much money I make and what my credit score is." The accuracy of this statement seemed to hit her like a slap. For the first time since I'd known her, Patricia Martinez was speechless. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, my voice steady and professional. "From now on, David and I will pay our own way. We'll contribute to family gifts and celebrations proportionally, just like any normal family. But we won't be anyone's personal bank account, and I won't be tested or manipulated into proving my worthiness through my wallet." "And if I don't agree to these terms?" Patricia asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "Then you'll have a daughter-in-law who's polite but distant instead of one who actually wants to be part of your family," I replied. "Your choice." I returned to my work, effectively dismissing her. After a moment of stunned silence, Patricia stormed out, slamming the door behind her. David stood in the hallway looking shaken. I've never seen anyone stand up to her like that. "Maybe that's the problem," I said gently. Over the next few weeks, something interesting happened. Without the financial pressure and manipulation, family gatherings became better. Patricia was cooler toward me, but also more respectful. She stopped asking invasive questions about money and started making an effort to learn about my actual interests and opinions. Jennifer, freed from her role as her mother's accomplice, began reaching out independently. We met for lunch, Dutch treat, and she confessed that she'd been uncomfortable with the dinner setup from the beginning. "Mom's been stressed about money lately," Jennifer explained. "She thought if she could get you to invest in the family, it would solve some problems. By lying and manipulating me?" She convinced herself it was a test of family loyalty, but watching you handle it, Jennifer smiled ruefully. I realized I've never seen anyone refuse to be bulldozed by her. It was actually kind of inspiring. Most importantly, David began setting boundaries with his family about money. He told his mother directly that while we'd always contribute fairly to family celebrations, we wouldn't be anyone's financial safety net. "You did more than stand up for yourself that night," he told me weeks later. "You showed me what a healthy relationship with my family could look like." The expensive dinner that was supposed to put me in my place had instead established me as an equal member of the family, Not because I'd proven my financial worth, but because I'd proven my self-worth. And Patricia never again suggested that I pick up a check I hadn't volunteered for. Sometimes the best way to show people who you really are isn't to conform to their expectations, but to shatter them completely. That night at Le Bernardin, I learned that respect isn't earned by opening your wallet. It's earned by knowing when to keep it closed.